It is the 4th year anniversary of this channel, and so to do something for that, I've decided to finally finish something I started all those 4 years ago. Well, my first video was trying to talk for an entire hour about why the difference between rock and ground type Pokemon was confusing, and I later thought I would make a similar video about like fairy type, and eventually one about poison, and I kind of did something about dark. And not all the types have enough to make a whole video about, but I feel, I've done like 3, I feel like I should just finish all of them. I'll just do it all here. So I'll just kind of quickly go through every type that I haven't done yet. Starting with the least weird type, the normal type. Some people do think it's weird, because it's like, it's the neutral that type, but it is fully its own type, right? Like, it's not untyped, it is one. I don't think that's that weird, though. I mean, it's just, it represents anything that, like, a regular creature would do. Scratching, biting used to be in it, tackling, kind of like simple, basic physical attacks for the most part. And so, ghosts are incorporeal, so they don't get hit by them. Rocks, they wouldn't be affected very much. Then fighting types are trained to fight them, and you could say it's weird that you get a same type attack bonus with them, but like, if you're a normal type, then you're not another, if you're a fire type, you can scratch, sure, but if you're a normal type, scratching is your only thing, so you have to rely on that, and so you have to, like, be better at it, and so I don't think it's that weird. What is weird is dual types. They're a little bit difficult to design. And you can see in the first generation, there were only, there's a lot of extra stuff added. There were only normal flying types or pure normal types. And normal flying is something we'll get to later. But if we look for the first one that wasn't, I guess it's Girafarig, which was normal psychic. Again, there's a lot of extra normal, like, fairies added in later. And then we had normal water with Bibarel, and then Deerling and Sawsbuck normal grass, and Meloetta also normal psychic, or normal fighting, which is interesting. Diggersby normal ground with Litleo normal fire, and shortly after Helioptile. So it's basically, in Gen 1 there was no normal dual types, Gen 2 there was 1, Gen 3 there are none, Gen 4 there is 1, Gen 5 there were 2, I suppose. Then Gen 6 there were also 2, is Helioptile Gen 6? I actually am not sure. Oh, it's Gen 6, okay. And then in Gen 6 there were 3. So that's basically when they, like, embraced the idea. And they also made normal fairy dual types. So there's kind of even more with that. So basically up until Gen 5, kinda, I mean, like, Deerling is very much a modern normal dual type idea. Normal was very much just on its own or with flying. And, it is a bit difficult to design a normal dual type. How is Pyroar fire normal, but Arcanine is just fire? Right? It's like a lion would be normal type, a big dog would be normal type, a fire big dog is fire type, a fire lion would be fire type. I mean, and so they have to somehow make this like a lion that's still a normal lion, and it's also fire type. And they went for, it's still, I mean, lions only have brown coloration. I think they might have done that to emphasize the normal type of it, because brown is somewhat of a normal type color. Maybe if you're with all yellow, like a real lion, you kind of wouldn't be able to tell. And so they've tried to keep it a very grounded design where it's just a lion, and it's only the mane that has fire around it. And so it still looks like a regular lion, and then it has fire. And that's interesting. With Sawsbuck and Girafarig, it's kind of interesting. I guess that's a similar idea. This is a deer, and it's got leaves on it. Like, the majority of this creature is just a regular deer, and that's like a normal type. I mean, there's Stantler, right? And then it has some grass, and so that makes it normal and grass. Girafarig, honestly, I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with Girafarig. I don't understand its design, personally. I can't explain this one. Heliolisk is a very strange one. It's got no traditional normal type design elements. Despite being, normal type has things associated with it. It's kind of associated with, like, mammals more so than most other types of animals. Fat, pink or brown, just kind of like fur. Like we can see with Beware, it's normal fighting, and they added the normal type in by making it fluffy. It's a big fluffy mass, and that's kind of a normal type thing. It's also got some pink on there that might help. Heliolisk is just a lizard, and it's very bright yellow. This is a very odd one. Like, you look at its Pokedex, it's all about its electricity. It's interesting. I don't know I don't know why this one's normal type. Like, because there aren't many normal lizards. I suppose there's Kecleon, though its thing is changing type from normal. Dunsparce is kind of a snake, I think? Right, it's a snake-like, it's this weird thing. So, like, that's the only reptile that's been normal type before, and Kecleon. And this one, they didn't really put any effort into making it look normal in the way they did with, like, Pyroar, where they made it brown, even though the lines aren't. So that's a very strange one. I don't know where they thought the normal type was in this design. We also have being old is apparently a normal type trait. This is kind of a fun, an interesting design. Oranguru, I guess it's just another one where it's like a regular animal and it has some psychic abilities. So I feel like a lot of psychic types could, a lot of pure psychic types could just be, oh, it's a normal animal and it has psychic abilities, like Hypno, right? That's a taper and it goes into your dreams. Why is that not normal type when Oranguru is? I also want to emphasize again, this is a really interesting one. The grass normal. There was already a normal grass, so they weren't like obligated to it. Well, another thing about the dual types is that normal is by far the one with the most type combinations that haven't been done yet, right? Everything else is at like 2 or none, but normal still has 4. And obviously that's because it's a bit difficult to make dual types of, and it's been so long where they weren't doing it at all. Anyway, that doesn't apply to Orbeliva. They already had normal grass. And so I think it's, it's kind of interesting. But I want to mention again, there is an association of normal type with fat and olives. What are those for? Olive oil, right? So that's probably where the idea is coming from, right? It's like, it's a plant fat, and that's how you get a grass normal type. So I think that's an interesting idea. That was the main thing to do with a normal type. Now, a closely related type is the fighting type, and in this case it's actually, the thing that's weird about the fighting type is its relation to normal type. Primarily why some moves are normal type and not fighting type. Because fighting is like martial arts somewhat, but it's, there's double kick, low kick, karate chop. Karate chop was actually a normal type move in the first generation, which is pretty strange. And like wrestling, submission, cross chop, dynamic punch, mock punch. Okay, interesting. Well, then what about comet punch? Dizzy punch? Give me a moment. Mega kick and mega punch? Mega kick and mega punch are like some of the weirdest ones to be normal instead of fighting. And the explanation is, and like strength is, a punch thrown at maximum power. Okay, well, the explanation is that, these attacks are normal because they're just pure strength. They're not technique, right? They're not, a triple kick. You do a special 3-kick move or something, or you're focusing your mind before unleashing a punch. This is just repeatedly punching. It's consecutive. Oh my god, it's consecutive punches. Cool. And so it's like, okay, it's just normal, because anything can, anything with a humanoid shape can do like a big punch. It's not fighting, because fighting's, you gotta train, it's gotta be a technique. And okay, that's a consistent explanation that fits for those. However, Poliwrath is an evolution of Poliwhirl. Poliwhirl is pure water. Okay, it's this shape, it's got these fists. Poliwrath is just that, but bigger, and it's mad. But it got to gain the fighting type, because it's big and mad. Primeape, its fists kind of look like boxing gloves, a little bit. You could maybe argue that, but mostly it's just big and mad. And big and mad things do, like, powerful punches. They do things like throwing all their power into a punch, which is what strength is, right? A punch thrown at maximum power. That's a big mad thing to do, like a Primeape or a Poliwrath. So why can these be fighting type? And their moves would, if they're just doing a big punch, that's normal type. And I point out those two because those are very early Pokemon, and so they're most relevant to how you'd make the theming. But there's plenty of later examples, like Conkeldurr. It's just a construction worker that's like big and strong. Like, it doesn't, like, look at this. I mean, theoretically, are they like a concrete swinging martial art? This actually, it says, rather than rely on force, they use centrifugal force of the spinning concrete. Maybe? What are their moves like? Are there any concrete swinging moves? I mean, Rock Slide, Dynamic Punch, Hammer Arm, Superpower. Superpower! It's called Brute Force in Japanese! Oh, attacks the foe with great power. With Brute Force. That's fighting type. Brute Force is fighting type, but Super Strength is normal type. If you build enormous power and then punch the foe, that's normal type. But if you attack the foe with great power, it's fighting type. There's definitely just a big confusion here. Like, I don't think this is actually consistent that fighting is technique. There is plenty of use of fighting type as brute force, or like strength, big and mad, or just like muscle. And like, if normal is the fat, the fat type, then why can't fighting type be the muscle type, right? It would kind of be more consistent. I mean, they aren't always like muscular and all, but that seems like it's part of how the type is meant to be. Like Tauros, I haven't actually looked closely at this before. Okay, a muscular body and excels at close quarters combat. Uses its horns to strike the opponent's weak spots. Okay, well that's interesting. I like the idea of trying to make a fighting type that isn't bipedal. Tactical... tactical bull attack, sure. Anyway, so yeah, that was my main point. And if there's a type that's gonna be, muscle and fat, then bone, what type is that gonna be? Ground, apparently. I did a whole video on this, but one thing that sticks out to me about ground type is that it's apparently the type of bone. And, like, that doesn't come up often. And actually, Alolan Marowak isn't ground type anymore. That's kind of weird, but, like, there's only one Pokemon I think that relies on bone as like a theming, and it's got Bone Club and Bone Meringue, and they're ground type. And I do wonder if they were supposed to be like, if they wanted bone to be ground type, or if they wanted Marowak and Cubone to be ground type, and because they had bone, their bone type attacks were then made ground type. I don't know. Because maybe this is a burrowing creature. And that's why it's ground type. I don't know. It does remind me a little bit, though, that, like, Kangaskhan is often mistaken for a ground type. It looks a lot like a ground type, and I don't want to get into it too much. Anyway, I have a whole video about rock and ground type, so I don't want to talk about it too much. Rock type, the main thing there is sand. Which type is sand? Right? You'd think, okay, sand slash sand shrew. It's ground type, right? And that makes sense. Trapinch. It's sand. Hippowdon. Sand. Okay, sand is ground, right? Silicobra. Sand is ground. This is so consistent, right? Sandygast, it's literally made of sand. Guess what it is? It's ground type. Okay. And let me just look up sand here. Okay. They're all immune to sandstorm, that's fine. Rock types are the one that benefit most from sandstorm. They get a special defense boost. And the move sandstorm itself is rock type. And not ground. Sandy Cloak Wormadam is bug ground. What is it? It mostly seems like it's ground, and I think that makes more sense. But it's also rock. Why is it both? It wouldn't even be that difficult. But it's both. They've just made it inconsistent. Sand is both. I don't know. So Ghost, I don't think it's too weird compared to previous ones. The weirdest thing I can think of is some people say that it being physical, when first regens, all ghost type moves where it used physical attack. Some people say that's weird. I think it makes sense though, because like if a ghost punches you, that's still its physical body and it's a ghost type attack, right? And so Lick was the only ghost type move when that decision was made. And licking, that's obviously physical, that's just using its ghostly tongue as an attack. Shadow Ball, yeah, obviously that would be special, but Shadow Punch and... Astonish is apparently yelling, but it's physical. That's kind of strange. And so, I don't think it's that weird. I think if a ghost licks you, that's the ghost's physical attack. Or if the ghost punches you, that's its physical attack. And even though, it's a punch, but it's a ghost, so anything the ghost does is, would be ghost. Anyway. What is a little bit weird is that Ghost is immune to normal and fighting because, they're incorporeal, so if you punch a ghost, it'll just phase right through. And normal is immune to Ghost, because if a ghost punches you, it phases right through. But of course, the immunity isn't physical attacks, it's just relating to normal and fighting. So if you use a fire punch, it hits a ghost, and I guess ghosts can be hurt by fire, water, rocks, anything except another regular body just attacking it. Except I think the strangest one is that that flying type still hits it. So if you hit it with your wings, then that works. But if you tackled it, it doesn't work. But because you're a bird, you can hit ghosts with it. It's not a game balance-wise. Obviously, ghosts probably shouldn't be immune to all physical moves and unable to use physical moves or something crazy. But it is a little weird that you can peck a ghost. But in Gen 1 you couldn't bite a ghost. Also, you can bite a ghost with Dark type. It's weird that Ghost is weak to Dark. It's Dark is evil or darkness or sneaky. And biting, that's sometimes an underhanded tactic, you could say, and so... But, it's still just your teeth. Your teeth can hit ghosts, but your fists can't. Ghosts are weak to teeth. This is really nitpicking stuff compared to everything else, I think. But I gotta try and think of something. Speaking of teeth, the Dark type. This one, I mentioned in the Poison type video that I kind of did something on Dark type. I have a whole video on the physical special split. It's not that good, but if we look at... So, the Dark type is really funny with the physical special split. In Gen 2 and 3, all Dark type attacks were special. We look at Dark-type moves now, though, and we see, yeah, Bite, obviously that should have been physical. Beat Up, yeah, obviously that should have been physical. Crunch, yeah, Feint Attack, yeah, Pursuit, yeah, Thief, okay. Knock Off, yeah. That's every Dark-type attack that existed before the physical special split. Every single one of them was actually describing a physical move. So you were biting with your special attack, you were punching with your special attack. It was ridiculous. And the reason it was special was because offensively it's very similar to Ghost type. It's good against the same two, and it resisted Dark Resist both. Anyway, I don't know why it's so similar to the Ghost type. They used to both be resisted by Steel too. I feel like that was a bad choice. They could easily have come up with differences, but for some reason they're very similar offensively, so to be differentiated, Ghost is physical and Dark is special. And of course, you know, Ghost, I think it does make sense to be physical, but it also would have made sense for it to be special, whereas Dark was completely physical. If you look at the Pokemon, there is one Dark-type Pokemon that has a higher special attack than physical attack. It's not just the moves, it's the Pokemon too. So here we have Umbreon. The difference is small, but it's definitely not favoring special attack. Mightyena, favoring physical. Absol, massively favoring physical. Murkrow, balanced. Sneasel, what were they doing with this? Why did they make that so extremely bad at its two types? Ice and Dark, it's terrible at. And it's got this insane, not insane, but I mean relative to its other stats, really high physical attack that it can only use on, you know, its normal type coverage. Wow. Sableye, 10 more physical than special. Tyranitar, 40 more. Shiftry, you know, only 10 more, but still definitely doesn't favor special. Starpedo, 25 more. Cacturn, balance. There's a decent amount of balance, and so obviously they can use the Dark type attacks well, but, you know, just that there's only a single Pokemon that prefers its special attack. Houndoom. Houndoom was the one special attacking Dark type that they designed when Dark was a special type. And so when every move switched to physical, I don't think the Dark types really cared that much. I mean, I'm sure, like, if you're looking at, like, a competitive history of Umbreon, like, they probably would have liked to be a special attacker or something like that. But I mean, you know, just in their usage of their stats to their moves, the only one that cared was Houndoom. And it was also crazy. After the split, they just, like, the generation they did the split, they kept adding more physical Dark-type moves, and only one special one. Dark Pulse was the only Dark-type move they gave Houndoom to use. They just kept they kept adding more physical moves when everything was already physical. It's crazy. So yeah, the Dark type was like the biggest change in the physical special split, because everything went from special to physical. It's really funny. Okay, so I mentioned I already talked about Dark type. I also already talked about Fairy type. The main thing I had to say about Fairy type was that I think there should be more of them. There are a lot of Pokemon that they didn't add the Fairy typing to, like Celebi. Celebi it's the most fairy Pokemon, maybe second most. I had a chart, I'll bring it up again. I don't want to recover everything, but they should have added it to way more types. They only, there's a pattern with what their policy seems to be. They only added it as an extra type to Pokemon that only were singular type, or replaced the normal typing. They should have replaced Psychic typing for a few of them. is my main argument there. And then there's also flabebe, which should be grass type, like, and I've empirically proven it. Anyway. And then poison type, that was a very recent video, you can just go watch it now. I guess quick summaries. I think it's weird how they removed the they used to have different charts for every generation, and that was helpful. I liked that. They got rid of that recently. Before they added fairy type, it was weird how bad it was offensively, and how common it was in Gen 1, and then not common at all later. It's not a big deal, but I made a whole video out of it. Okay, so Bug. Bug I don't have as much to say about. It's not too strange. I guess one thing I'll mention quickly is I think Bug flying types are maybe... If you were to let Pokemon have 3 types, Bug would maybe be the most common type in like a set of 3. Because there's a lot of Bug types that would like to be like flying and something else. So I'm looking at it now, there's a lot of Bug types that change type on evolution. Not always like out of Bug types, though sometimes, but it's just, you know, like I don't think it's not that common, but like there's a lot of Bug types that change types on evolution somewhere, you know, like these. One thing is, you know, is it insect type? Well, no, it's Bug. And I need to find Bug real quick. Bug is apparently sometimes defined as insect, but I kind of disagree. I think spiders should be bugs, because they're very similar. What matters is, you know, in the human experience of these creatures, what are they like? And spiders are very similar to bugs in the human experience of them. But there's also the one time they made hermit crabs a bug. And that's really weird, because there's a ton of crabs that are just water type. Or Crabrawler is just fighting type. So why isn't this one bug, you know? Like, why hermit crab is the only crab that gets to be a bug. And that's very strange. Right, mostly it's insects and spiders. Arachnids, I guess. There's also a scorpion. Maybe a few other things. Like, I think, so like, then there's Anorith, which is one of these things. And I'm pretty sure these are so old that nothing was an insect at this time. So it's kind of strange. It's an early arthropod. And you know, if arthropods are bugs, then there should be more crabs that are bugs. But there's only one. So I don't, it's very few Pokemon that are weird like that. The vast majority of bugs are just insects or spiders, or insects or arachnids, and then there's one crab and one Anomalocaris. Okay, flying. Flying is going to be a big one. Flying's one of the ones that I thought I might even make a whole video about, but I don't think I want to. That'd be too much. There's a lot of obviously weird about flying type. We can already see it right now. Only 2 or 3 pure flying types. One of them isn't even a final evolution. And then, for some reason, they also thought that it had to be secondary typing in almost every case, until they made Noibat. Then they finally thought it could be primary typing. And I don't know why that was a rule before, and I don't know why they broke it. But they decided to, and now you just get regular Pokemon are primary flying. Okay. What I really want to get to is something people probably already know. It used to be, in the very early development, it used to be bird type. And there's some remnants of this in the code. In fact, this might even show up here. Here we go. An unused type in the code of the first 2 games. And of course, missing no is bird type. So it's possible that originally these were just going to be bird type instead of normal flying, right? I believe it was developer stated somewhere that the reason it was changed to flying was because there's a lot of things that aren't birds that fly, like Butterfree. And, you know, Charizard, is that a bird? Could that have been a bird type? We don't know. So, like, they wanted to add flying to a bunch of types and that weren't necessarily, flying to a bunch of Pokemon that weren't necessarily birds. And I imagine that was especially relevant when flying was immune to ground and there weren't abilities. So, like, you know, Butterfree should be able to fly and avoid ground type attacks. Same for Charizard, and so it has to be flying type. And so an interesting consequence of this is that a lot of bug types were probably designed before the flying type was changed. And so we have, in the first generation alone, 2 bug poison types that are flying, and they don't get to be the flying type. Probably they were designed first, and then the flying type was made, and so they already had their 2 types, and they didn't put it back on. If we look at later Pokemon that are similar, we do still have Dustox. They did still make Dustox, but like Masquerain, you know, it evolved from a bug water, but they still made it bug flying, because it is flying. And then they did eventually do that again. Okay, Vikavolt is bug electric. So they do still make that choice several times. Bug fairy, they definitely make the choice to make them bug and a secondary type other than flying, even when they are flying, like Frostmoth. They've definitely still done that intentionally since. But I'm just saying, I think in the first generation, that's probably what happened. And it's possible that influenced decisions later, that they already had these 2 examples, and so they weren't doing anything weird by doing it again. Another thing about the flying type, Dodrio, just angers me. Clearly, yes, this is a bird. This would have the bird type, probably, if it was... I mean, it would have to have the bird type if the bird type existed. But it's a flightless bird, and they gave it the flying type, and that just means it's still the bird type, right? If a flightless bird has the flying type, then that means it's bird type and flying, you know? There's also another strange thing about it. So, it was originally the bird type, and so it had moves like Peck and Fly, and Mirror Move, which is supposed to be like when a bird mimics things, parrot mimicry, right? Peck, Sky Attack, Wing Attack, okay. And then Gust, right? But Gust was originally normal type. And so it's Gen 2 with, I guess, Aeroblast, which wasn't that unique to Lugia. It is still unique to Lugia. That's interesting. Lugia might have been the Pokemon that made flying associated with air instead of just birds. Oh, also, again, like, okay, I forgot to mention. So, even though it's flying and not bird, the majority of these moves are still bird-based, right? Feather Dance, Grave Bird, Chattering, like a bird roosting. They're still mostly about birds, especially early on. And obviously, they designed all of these moves when it was bird type. Then made it flying type. And then in Gen 2, they thought, if it's flying, maybe it could be air, too. And so they made Gust flying instead of normal, and made Aeroblast. And then we start getting a few moves like Air Cutter. And then in Gen 4, they're like, oh, that's great, that's the special wing of the bird type of air. And Hurricane and stuff. So that ended up working out well. You know, convenient, they just had some special moves for flying type. And, I don't know, it's a strange space. I haven't fully thought out where I was going with that. It's like, you know, it's also air, but it's mainly bird. And it's still always awkward, like, what do the flying bug use out of these, right? Often it's like Wing Attack and nothing else, right? Like, I mean, nowadays it's gotten Air Slash and Air Cutter. an aerial ace, but they're pretty limited. They're pretty limited on flying type moves. Butterfree literally didn't have any initially, and it's only now gotten, it's gotten air slash and bug buzz, isn't it? But air slash and gust and stuff. But there's like a very limited portion of the moves. This is Pokemon Yellow only. A very limited portion of the moves that bug types are, like the many bug flying types are allowed to use, and it's like some of the special ones and like wing attack. Maybe aerial ace and acrobatics. Because, they're not going to get Pack. Lady Anne still didn't have any. They're not going to get Pack, they're not going to get Brave Bird. So all these bug flying types are kind of just being screwed over. You're not allowed to actually use your type offensively to the full power that it could have, because you're a bug type. So we can't give you, Sky Attack, Pack, Fly, or Aerial Ace, or Brave Bird, or whatever. There's a bunch of moves that they just don't give them. So that's just one more issue with the bug flying type that's already really bad. Okay, so next, I want to look at the starter types kind of together. There isn't that much that's weird about them. Like, they're like water. It's water, right? Like, what are you gonna mess up about that? Well, one odd thing is, like, okay, it's not often literally. It's mostly Pokemon that live in water, and almost every Pokemon that lives in water is water type, with very few exceptions. I did have to check. Tynamo, you don't actually find it in the water, despite obviously being like an electric eel line. I guess they just float out of the water. They just don't even actually live there, and that's why it's not water type, which is weird. Well, this says it lives in the... Oh no, they do live in the ocean. So, okay, that's interesting. Water type or a Pokemon that lives in the ocean but isn't water type. Crabrawler is obviously a coconut crab, which mostly live on land, actually, and so, most crabs are water type, except for the one that's also bug type, and then this one is fighting, and anyway, this one isn't, but because it doesn't live in the water. Okay. So, it's a bit odd that it's, you live in the water, you become a water type, pretty much. That doesn't really apply to other types, right? I mean, you live in the grass, you don't become a grass type, you live in the fire. A lot of the types aren't things where aren't places you can live. I guess ground is, and you live in the ground, you could be a ground type. Like, I think Sandslash is just a burrowing creature, and so it lives in the ground and it becomes a ground type. I don't know. That's all I got. It's not that strange a type. You live in the water, you're a water type, you shoot water things. We know what water is. I don't know. Grass type. One oddity of the grass type is that it's not... At first, why didn't they name it plant? I don't know. It's just plants. And also like fungus. And you might say, fungus, oh, those aren't even plants, they're closer to animals, technically. But what matters is within the human experience of these things, what is it like? And a mushroom is, to a human, similar to a plant. It's a thing, it grows, it doesn't move, it just kind of grows up, and that's all it does. And so a fungus is like a plant. And so a fungus is grass type. And, it is really sad how horrible it is. That's weird. It's weirdly bad. Like, look at this, and it's got more weaknesses and resistances. Like, wow. They really just... This is... Oof. Why is it that bad? That's all I have. Fire type, I think it's kind of interesting, because it's really good defensively. So, fire type has the most resistances other than steel. And it actually wins by 2. If I've counted this right. I've only just gone through now and tried to count it, but there's a lot of types with 4 resistances, or like you count immunities into it, and you know you still count, so you can get to 4 still, and 4 here. Fire has 6 hold resistances. And like, you know, steel is just insane. We can get to that later. It breaks the rules, but fire also does. Fire has 6 resistances. And 4 is as much as you get for any other type. That's kind of, like, it's especially strange because thematically you'd think fire type feels offensive and not defensive, right? And so offensively it's good against 4 types. That's a normal amount. I mean, I believe the highest is 5 with fighting and ground. And then there's a few that are good against 4, and so 4 is a pretty good amount to be good against, and then it's resisted by some still. But resisting 6 types is uniquely good, whereas it's just offensively a little bit good, instead of like offensively strong and defensively kind of weak. And an interesting thing about that is it's actually been buffed every time new types were added. So in Generation 2, it gained resistance to steel, and actually resistance to ice at the same time. It didn't originally resist ice. And then Fairy was added, and it gets to resist that too. So it's gone from 3 up to 6. It's kind of interesting. And yeah, that's weird. That's like crazy. Why is that so good defensively? And so, taking them all as the starter types, there's a pretty big imbalance that you likely are already aware of. Grass, not only is it like really bad on the type chart for what's supposed to be, you know, one of your main types, you know, one of your most important Pokemon, why would you choose the one that looks like this? That's a balancing issue. I think, you know, these 3 types should be a little bit better. But also, grass is pretty common, and so you can normally get grass types easily if you need one. And so, why would you make a starter of a grass type when the other types are harder to get? And water, also very common. It's the most common type, I believe. But it is actually, you know, it's got nice resistances, it's good defensively, and it's like fine offensively, that's fine. But then fire, you know, it's like, it's kind of feel like it's better than the other 2, and it's often really rare. People focus on Sinnoh for fire types, but they're often uncommon. So, like, most of the time in Kanto, your options are Vulpix or Growlithe, depending on version, and then Ponyta or Magmar, if you have the version that Magmar is in. And so that's 2 or 3, depending on the game. And Sinnoh is criticized for having only 1, Ponyta, and then the starter, which you have in both games. So, and I guess you have Flareon, so maybe it's not as bad as I'm thinking, but like, you know, Generation 2, as far as fire types they added, they're pretty hard to get. Houndour is only post-game. Slugma is only post-game. So yeah, I think it might only be the starters. You'd have to look through all the routes and see like how common like Ponyta and Growlithe are. But of the Johto types, they're post-game only. And then Hoenn's like the one game where fire type is pretty common. Then Sinnoh, we all know Sinnoh. Unova, they've probably fixed it by then. Yeah, there's some options in Unova. So I guess mainly I was just thinking about the first 2. I was thinking about, you know, fire types there aren't a lot of options in Kanto. There's not a lot of options in Johto. And so they're often kind of rare. And so, anyway, for balance of the starter types, fire is just winning by so much. Anyway, there's another thing I wanted to talk about, though, that I just find a little bit interesting. The physics special split again. It's just an interesting topic to me. So, they were all special initially. And then the split happened, and a lot of the moves were special for both types. So there's some physical in there, it's majority special, there's physical. It's not actually that bad of a mix, but it's a little bit majority special. But since then, there's been some changes, like Bullet Seed being buffed, and like there had Leaf Blade already, and like Razor Leaf and Vine Whip. And then new moves being added immediately, like Seed Bomb, Power Whip, Wood Hammer, that actually mean grass types are often physical attackers now. And we can look at this in the average stats. On average, grass types have higher physical attack than special, by a noticeable amount. And I know that's just interesting that grass has kind of morphed from a pure special one to kind of favoring physical. It's not like it lost the special that it had before, but like there's been more of a focus on its physical attacks and abilities since then. So then water was somewhat similar to start. It was special, and it still remained special focus, and like every water type remains surf, right? And so surf is just the basis for all water type attacks. As waterfall, as its physical like equivalent, it's a little bit weaker, right? And so you know, often that'll show you what type it's supposed to favor, right? It'll have the 90 base power, 100 accurate move of the type it wants to be, and then like 80 power, 100 accuracy of the type it doesn't want, like Fairy. So like Fairy has Moonblast, 95 power, 100 accuracy, special. But for physical, it's got 90 power, a little bit less, 90% accuracy. So like if if you're a physical Fairy type and you just want a basic move, it's going to be worse than if you're just if you're a special one. And so we kind of see that with water. So I think looking at it, for the most part, it maintains kind of a traditional balance of like its favors special, but it has physical options. But then there's some like standout stuff, like Aqua Jet is physical and Liquidation is physical. I think Liquidation was considered really good. I mean, this looks like better Waterfall, so this is, narrowing the gap. Chance to lower defense over, 5 power or chance to lower defense. Liquidation is maybe better than Surf. And I mean, this is a unique move, but Vicious Rend is just insane as a physical water type move. And you get like Aqua Step, that's a physical water type move, and Jet Punch, that's probably a unique move. But anyway, so it's mostly balanced, but then you have some like kind of standout physical water type moves. Anyway, that then is to say, Fire type is kind of strange because it doesn't have good physical options. So it has like Flame Wheel, that's like an early game move. Sacred Fire, obviously, I think I hear often people think Sacred Fire should be given to more Pokemon because only these two can use it, and it's like, oh, it's a good physical fire type move. You're looking at like Blaze Kick, reduced power, reduced accuracy, for a higher critical hit chance, but, And then like Fire Fang is obviously just pretty weak. So then you have Flare Blitz, which is, it's a powerful move, but it has pretty high recoil. It's 1/3. So, there's a downside, you don't always want to use that. Flame Charge is like, oh, you boost your speed. Then you've got like, more unique moves that aren't being given out to other Pokemon, like Fire Lash. And Bitter Blade, apparently, that's just Leaf Blade with fire. And so it's still special. And that's interesting, I think, since they made 3 fire fighting types in a row. You'd think one of them would be like, oh, I'm gonna take advantage of the physical special split. I guess Emboar, okay, yeah, Emboar is actually like, okay, I'll focus on physical attacks. But, you don't have... I guess Heat Crash is what it was meant to use. And it was made really heavy so that you could use it, and it's a unique move originally, so okay. So they had to make a unique move to make the physical fire type starter like a thing. I don't know, it's not like a huge thing, but it's just interesting that fire hasn't really adapted being physical so much as grass or water. And grass is almost, more physical now. Oh, and I forgot. I was going to look at the, I was going to look at these. You can see these in the average stats too, right? Obviously, your favorite special still. Water types are a little bit higher physical attack on average, but not as much as grass. So it's still probably more balanced. Okay, so electric type, I don't have much. I can't think of much. The main thing I have is that it is pretty low on its interaction numbers, right? Like it's relatively close to like normal type. It only has 10 total interactions here, which is the same amount as Psychic, Dragon, and Ghost, so it's not like that's a rare thing to do, but I feel like Electric should do more, right? Like, it should really be super effective against Steel. I mean, like, come on. Why does it even resist Steel? Like, I feel like they could even be super effective against each other or something. Why isn't it good against Steel? I don't know. And I don't have a ton of thoughts other than that. It's just, it's interesting to have another type that's only weak to 1, similar to normal. Oh, Pikachu in a cap. We gotta mark this as a separate Pokemon. This is Pikachu in a cap. I don't know. It doesn't seem like that weird of a type to me. I don't. It just kind of makes sense. Sorry, don't have much there. So Psychic type, everybody already knows about its evolution from being insanely overpowered in Gen 1 to massively nerfed, and then kind of over time being made irrelevant a little bit. There's a whole video about it by somebody else. There's not a lot I have to say about that you wouldn't have already been able to hear. What's the one interesting thing I found about it? So this is a little table I made, and some people disagree with me on what counts as a legendary. But this is how many legendaries of each type there are by generation. And so, they're flying early on, and anyway. Psychic. There's just a lot of Psychic-type legendaries consistently. It's like the first 4 generations, Psychic was the legendary type. For some, in Gen 1 that makes sense. But then, by Generation 3 and 4, they're still just spamming you with Psychic-type legendaries. Latios, Mesprit, Uxie, Azelf. They just, don't stop making them. And even, Gen 5 has so many legendaries. And so overall, it is actually still the most common type for a legendary Pokemon to be. And then, Dragon started taking over as the legendary type in Gen 3 when they made 3 of them, and then more and more. But it still never managed to take over Psychic. It might eventually. When I say paradox, I mean specifically the paradox of legendary Pokemon. I feel like you should count those. I don't know, do you need this many Psychic-type legendaries? Do you need all your Deoxyses and your Jirachis to be Psychic-type? I mean, I think some of them should be switched to Fairy, for one. I don't know. I'm getting tired at this point. Cause it was kind of like a mystical type, a little bit. So, Lugia was Psychic and Celebi was, and they just kept making them even after they stopped being overpowered as a type. It's like a kind of a mediocre type if you just look at all this. It's not very good defensively, only just self and fighting, and offensively it's only good against 2 types, and there's something that's immune to it. It just doesn't add up to being very good. But it's it's still the legendary type. Dragon I have a lot to say about though, which is mostly the moves. When a dragon breathes fire, it's dragon type. But when anybody else breathes fire, it's fire type. When a dragon scratches you, it's dragon type. When everybody else does it, it's normal type. Like, what's dragon about dragon breath? Interestingly, they call it a mighty gust in more recent games. That's kind of interesting. I wonder if they're trying to differentiate it from being fire. It still looks a lot like fire to me. And they give it to, like, Charmander. But, like, you know, Dragon Claw, like, you know, what makes it dragon to use this claw? That they're huge and sharp? I think anything can have huge, sharp claws. Why, like, you know, is it the fact that a dragon is doing it that makes it, you know, you scratch somebody, normally it's just normal type, but a dragon gets to be dragon type. Okay, that would be a consistent idea, except non-dragons get to use it. Like Archaeops? Why does Archaeops have Dragon Claw? That's kind of crazy. It's mostly only dragon types. Oh no, then you get like Aerodactyl. Oh, Feraligatr can learn it. Okay, Charizard and Feraligatr. From the initially when they made it, you can use Dragon Claw. Okay, is it Reptile Claw? Oh, no, Tyranitar can use it. And Sceptile? And Aggron? Like, what claw? How do you claw like in a dragony way? Right? Because like, you know, with elements, obviously you attack with that element. So like you can fire punch, and it's a punch with fire. Okay, ice punch, it's a punch with ice. And then with like bug, if a bug does it, then it's probably like a bug type attack. Actually, there's something I forgot about bug type. There's, you know, I mean, I think for the most part, like, okay, your bug type's way of doing things. U-turn, I just hate the theming on. I forgot about this. I wanted to say I hate the theming on U-turn. It makes no sense. And then they just give it to everything. What's bug type about it? Why is what does it mean? Like, it really annoys me. What's bug type about this? What's bug type about the learn set, even? How many bug types are even in here? Yanma. Its existence in this state feels like purely a game design thing, right? Like there's no bug type logic to this. Look, there's so few bug types, even learn it. It's why is it a bug type move? Why is it just called U-turn? I just hate the name. I hate everything about it, design-wise. I think this is horribly designed. This is one of the least logical design moves in the entire game. I was recently thinking about a different move that I wanted to complain about, and I don't remember it right now. I might add it if I remember and I feel strongly enough. It's, you know, dragon isn't an element, it's a creature. And so, like, it's, you know, a ghost-type move, other creatures, you could say, normal, bug, ghost, and fairy, can all be a little bit weird, because, like, when is it fairy-type to punch you if you're a fairy? Well, maybe, but I think they don't have nearly this level of a problem. Dragon-type moves are just... I don't think there's any consistency to it. Draco Meteor comets are summoned from the sky. Like, are comets dragon type? A dragon tail? If you hit them with your tail in a dragony way? Actually, I mean, I don't think there are other tail attacks. This is the worst one, though, of them. Dual Chop. Dual Chop is crazy. Dual Chop, you just hit them twice in a row with brutal strikes, whatever that means. And it gets to be dragon type, because it was made for Haxorus. And like, Machamp can learn it, though. So it's not, you know, it's not a dragon hits you with dual chops and it gets to be dragon type. Because Machamp can learn it. Why can Machamp learn it? What about the technique makes it dragon that Machamp can do it and it's not a karate chop? Oh, it's a dual chop that makes it dragon type. Ambipom can use it. There's so many. It's like almost every dragon type move you could look at and you could make this complaint about it. So I'm gonna stop there. Steel, okay, I only have two things about steel. One, I kind of wonder why they called it steel and not metal. It's not like it's weird, but I don't know. They made that choice. Second, why? Why is it like this? Why does it resist half the types in the game? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, sorry. More than half. Add this one. It's 11 out of 18. 11 out of 18! There's less types that are neutral to steel. Like, this shouldn't be... they've made this table wrong, right? They need to list what it's weak to and what it's normally affected by. Because resistance is the default state for steel type. It just gets to resist everything by default. Like, it's just, why is it so good? And it was even more ridiculous in the past. Before Fairy was added, it resisted Ghost and Dark. So this was, I said that this is 11 total. It was 12 total out of 17 types. 12 out of 17. It was weak to 3 then. It was normally affected by 2 types. Why is it this good? It's like if you want to make a defensive Pokemon, just make it Steel type, and then it's instantly, you know, takes half damage from half the types in the game. It's just crazy. Why is it so good defensively? It's so unfair to every other type. Because like I mentioned before, the most any other type resists is 6 with fire, but for below that, it's 4. 4 is like the normal maximum. And you're coming in here with 11 or 12 when you're added. That's 3 times the amount any other type gets! I hate this. I think Steel should just be nerfed into the ground. Because, like, why does it get to be this good? Like, remove... Okay, let's just start going immediately. Remove resistance to Bug, remove resistance to Steel. That's also partially a buff, but... You know, Steel can break Steel. I legitimately... I actually, until now, I thought Steel didn't resist itself. I didn't know that. Remove resistance to Bug to be nice to Bug, and Grass to be nice to Grass, because it can over time it can like corrode, you can break down metal like with like plants, maybe, I don't know, and like I don't know, like Ice and Psychic or something. Just remove like 5 resistances at least. It can take it. It'll still be like the best like defensive list in the game, at least, you know, in quantity. If you removed 5 of them, it annoys me. It annoys me why they did it like that. And then, you know, it's metal rather than just steel, but that's the same thing Grass had going on. So it's not big. I just kind of wonder why they chose steel instead of metal. Okay, now Ice is my favorite one. I saved this for last. This is my favorite one. The idea about Ice is that it was probably a very late addition to Generation 1. Likely, I mean, definitely the last type added. So first off, there's no pure Ice types. And of the Ice types that do exist, only one of them relies on the Ice type existing. So right here, Dugong and Cloyster. They're water Ice types. They only gain it on evolution as well. They could just be water types. I mean, Cloyster, I don't see the ice in this one at all. I think they just added it to be like an offensive ability for it, right? This is just a clan that should just be water type, but they thought it would be cool if it could use ice better. Dugong is like an Arctic seal or something. I mean, Dugong's a real creature as well, isn't it? Dugongs actually don't go in the water don't go in like cold water. Yeah, this is a pretty uncold range, so it's an interesting choice for the name. Yeah, I mean, why was this even Ice type to begin with, right? It's this thing, and this thing isn't even in the ice. That definitely could have been a late, like, it's in the ice cave, we'll make it an Ice type. The seal's definitely going the cold, but it's not the seal specifically. It's not the seal specifically that gets the ice type, it's the dugong, the evolution. And then you keep going. And quickly, Lapras is similar, it's just another water ice type that... Does this need to be ice? I mean, do you see the ice in this design? Not exactly, it's like a Loch Ness monster you can ride. Loch Ness, I mean, it's probably kind of cold up there, but it's not like it's covered in ice. And so then you have Jinx, which seductively wiggles its hips as it walks. Interesting. Okay. So, is this icy? Honestly, I don't know where the ice is in the design, if you think about it. I mean, I called it a Yuki-Onna in a previous video, but, you know, like, does this thing need to be ice? It could have just been psychic, right? It could just be a weirdo dancing woman that's psychic. There's not a lot of ice in the design. And so, the only ice type that needs to be ice type is Articuno. Right, and so Articuno is in a pair, in a trio, with like the kind of traditional JRPG attacking magics. Fire, electric, and ice. I've been playing Final Fantasy 1, and you have ice, fire, and lightning for the Black Mage, right? Those are your attacks. You have a few, like, status moves other than that. But, you know, you're fire, ice, and lightning, and that's, like, a common thing. And so, at some point, you know, they were like, we want to make this trio of fire, ice, and lightning, and it's possible that they might have thought water could cover for ice. Up until they might wanted to make a dedicated Pokemon for ice, and they're like, is this ice, is this water fine? Do we want to maybe make this just ice? There were actually quite a few ice-type moves in Gen 1. I was kind of expecting there to not be that many, if this theory was true. So this might be evidence against it, that they have, you know, a decent number of moves for Gen 1, 6. And there was something I heard once that I believed, and like I can't find it. And this is the first time I've seen something related mentioned, is that bird type has an index number, which was after rock and before bug. And I can't find the index numbers. But I heard that ice is the last one. And clearly it would be possible to check if one could find these index numbers. But I cannot. If somebody comments with how to check, I'm going to pin it. And I would like to check these index numbers so I can verify this information. Because if ice is the last in the index number, then hey, that's pretty good evidence. What I even heard was that in the type chart, like when it defines relations between types, it would normally go like water type and it would list all of water types' interactions, and then when you get to rock type, well, its relation to water is already defined, so it would be left out. But that ice is an exception. When you get to ice type at the back, it defines all of them, even though other types would have been above. But I can't verify that, and that'd be even harder to verify than just finding index numbers. So, if anybody knows, that would be cool. Until you check the comments and see that somebody pinned it, do not believe that information. But I'm putting it in because I want to ask for people to try to find it, because this index number thing made me think, oh, it's findable somewhere. So it's partially the Pokemon with the type, is the main thing. Also, maybe of note is that it's one of the few types that received a change in Generation 2 that wasn't directly related to the new types. It is now resisted by fire, and it wasn't before. And so maybe that's like, they didn't fully think it through, right? Maybe. Like, I think the only other one is bug and poison. Used to be good against each other, and then that got changed. And so I think there's only those two changes. And Psychic is now weak to Ghost, but that was probably a bug fix. And then it's just things related to the new types. So, yeah, okay, anyway. So it's a bit weird in Generation 1. I think it was likely the last type added. And I think that's interesting. Like, and not just the last, but like late. You know, maybe another reason was I thought Dragon was kind of too good if it resisted water, fire, and grass. It needed to be weak to something. And they made it weak to itself. Well, that wasn't a big deal. And they're like, well, we gotta have something to kill it. And they chose ice. You know, maybe it was the last type for reasons like that. This has been over an hour. Okay. Cool.